Seyed, thanks so much for coming onto the program. So it seems European nations are not looking at these talks over the past few days positively. China seems to have a better mindset about it. But how is this all being viewed in Iran itself?
Hello, and thanks for having me. Well, the Americans admittedly have failed in their maximum pressure policy against Iran, and the Americans are grappling with several crises at home and in the region and abroad, and ties with allies and Chinese as well as the Russians and Iran. And while Iran has endured all these pressures, and we are now after the peak of the pressures, Tehran has leverages against the West. And since this is a revolutionary government, the new government, and it has gone working on domestic economy in order to defuse the U.S. sanctions, which is a weapon of choice for the U.S. So they know pretty well that Iran is at the beginning of its pressure policy against the West, and it's a long way before Iran reaches the peak, while the Americans have failed in their pressure policy. So under this atmosphere, they went for a blame game. They decided to counter Iranian leverages with pressure. So they went for propaganda before the talks. On the eve of the talks, the UK Foreign Secretary wrote an article with the Israeli Foreign Minister, who happens to be an arch enemy of the JCPOA and Iran and has multiple nuclear warheads, in order to send this, poison the talks, the atmosphere of the talks just a day before, and then enrage the Iranians and provoke them to leave the talks, to claim and accuse that Iranians have stonewalled the talks. The Iranian top negotiator controlled the situation peacefully and smiled, and it surprised them. Then Iran brought up two initiatives, and they were surprised even further because they hoped that Iran would leave the negotiating table. Now Iran has taken the initiative to offer two drafts of agreements, and they don't know if there are contradictory pulses. At the beginning, a top European official told Western reporters that it's tough, the new drafts are tough, but they could base future talks. That means they are practical. But a few hours later, U.S. Secretary Blinken said that it's not us, but Iran that should show flexibility. That was to correct the European stance, and they aborted the talks immediately the day after. So they have gone back to their capitals to talk to the U.S. further, to reshuffle their strategy. Hopefully, Act 2 is not going to be their stance, and they would eventually engage in serious talks with Iran.
Seyed, isn't though this situation where both sides are going to have to compromise on something? I mean, European nations want Iran to come back to the JCPOA. They want that deal to restart. The sanctions on Iran have been devastating on an economy that's been hard hit. We've heard that many people in Iran, life is difficult, it's expensive. Sanctions being lifted would really help that. So surely there's got to be a compromise, because at the end of the day, it's the people of the country that are suffering.
True. Genuinely, the sanctions are hard, but they have failed to break the Iranian resolve. The point exactly is on this very important fact that the Americans are not willing to remove the sanctions. We had a JCPOA. We did and complied with all our undertakings based on IAEA reports. Americans and Europeans even confirmed that. But they still, even Obama never removed the sanctions. Even Donald Trump withdrew the JCPOA. Sanctions is their only main weapon of choice, and they do not want to cancel it. They do not want to, decrease the pressure on Iran. What Iran wants is very simple. It wants to ensure and guarantee that sanctions will be removed if Iran makes concessions. Iran is ready to do the concessions under the JCPOA. It's been clarified what Iran should do. These are the Americans who say, we do not want the JCPOA of 2015. We want more, without even giving any kind of concessions on merits to Iran. Iran has been loyal. The Americans withdrew the JCPOA, so they need to remove the sanctions. First, cancel this maximum pressure, failed maximum pressure policy in order to be allowed to get back. The point in here is that now Iran's drafts are based on the JCPOA. They are based on the last 6 rounds of talks between Iran and the West. But Americans and Europeans somehow do not want to comply with even the agreements that they have struck with Iran, especially JCPOA and UN Security Council 2231.
Mm-hmm. Okay, hopefully they will come to a point where all sides can come to some sort of agreement. Seyed Mostafa Khoshcheshm, I really appreciate your analysis. Thank you so much.